in this House. I call the member for Maitland.
Thank you, Mr Temporary Speaker, and I rise on behalf of over 10,000 people who have signed a petition against this government's relentless privatisation of community infrastructure and resources in this state. I want to recognise the dedicated health workers, union members, activists and concerned residents from the Maitland electorate in the gallery here today. And Mr Temporary Speaker, they will be very quiet, I promise. They've travelled all the way from Maitland, though, to tell this government one thing. We want a fully public new Maitland hospital, and we want it now. Our community has waited 6 years while this government has sat on its hands. They have made promises after promises after promises. We've had constant backflips, broken promises, obfuscation. In 2011, they promised a John Hunter-sized hospital, around 650 beds. They failed to admit that they would close down the existing Maitland Hospital, another 200 beds, and they failed to admit that they wanted to make it private. But we knew, Mr Temporary Speaker, we kept asking the questions. Then in 2015, they admitted that that hospital was going to be half the size of the John Hunter Hospital, that they would only contribute $400 million to that hospital, and that the existing Maitland Hospital would close. In 2016, last September, the then Health Minister, who refused to meet with me on the 13 occasions that I asked her to meet with me, she never met with me while I was in this place. They admitted that they would then privatise 5 hospitals in New South Wales: Goulburn, Bowral, Wyong, Shellharbour and Maitland. And they conceded that they would finally commenced construction of that hospital in 2018, more than 7 years from the date of the initial promise. Now, since that time, the government has bowed to public pressure on the privatisation of some of these hospitals. The former Health Minister backflipped on the Goulburn Hospital before she retired from this place, and the current Health Minister, to his credit, Mr Hazzard, has been more attentive to the voices of our community. Earlier this year, he came to Maitland Hospital. He actually invited me to attend the meeting that he held with staff, and he's met with me on a number of occasions to discuss this project. We have won some battles. We have $500 million towards that hospital that this government was never going to promise, and the Minister acknowledged the desperate need of our growing community, the fastest growing community in New South Wales, by promising that they would start construction before the end of this year. Indeed, just last week there were plans for enabling works announced on the agenda of the Maitland Traffic Committee. They were pulled at the last minute, but I have every faith that the Minister will put them back on there shortly. But unfortunately, this Minister has been unable to wrest away any money out of the government coffers from that so-called big budget surplus they keep crowing about. The $4.5 billion of rivet of gold that they are saying is flowing from the sale of our assets. The $50 billion or more dollars of our community assets that they have sold will never come back up to the M1 where they belong. Our port, our services. The Tweed has had a $534 million public hospital promised to that community. And some people, in fact the Maitland Mercury asked me today, is that because, is this sort of issue of what's happening to us because we come from a Labor held seat? And I say with a heavy heart that I would never ever think that anyone would stoop that low. But the Minister, who is not in this place today, right now, to hear this debate, he has got a sore throat, I will grant him that. Perhaps taking a Dorothy Dixer and then speaking for 7 minutes was something he could have saved himself from and actually faced up to the people from Maitland. But he said in response to a question about why Lismore was getting $180 million for their Stage 3 upgrade, because they are a good national member. They have a good national local member. That's what he said. Now, I've had many meetings with the Minister. He's told me that he thinks I'm a good Labor member for Maitland. He thinks I'll be there for a few terms to come. But if that is what he's going to do, if he is going to pork barrel on the health of the sick, the poor and the dying in communities in this state, well, that would have to be the lowest, the most despicable form of pork barrelling that I have ever seen in my life. Now, we are having all these discussions and they keep telling us that this will just be like the MARTA. Let that rest. This is nothing like the MARTA. New South Wales Health has admitted it is not the MARTA. This is not a not-for-profit nice charity. This is a private hospital by any other name. We reject it. We want our hospital to be public.